Welcome to this week's lecture. Today we will be talking about SPSS system design, the transition path, strategies and the challenges. So, how to transition towards sustainability. So, we will be discussing it along with certain barriers that come in its path. So, the potential barriers can come from the customers or the users of the product. Another one is from companies who are supposed to manufacture and sell these products and services. The third from government, and the fourth from designers or developers who are supposed to design and develop these solutions. So, eco-efficient product service system, user acceptance barriers. Say for example, mobile phone. This is something which we all of us need today, because of the internet and the smartphone penetration. We require certain kind of mobile phone. It has become kind of a necessity. Also, in order to be able to do the particular activities, we need certain RAM, certain features in that particular mobile phone. So, a particular mobile phone, after a year's time or 2 years time, because the demand from our way of consuming that mobile phone requires way much better system in the mobile phone, better RAM and better system configuration. So, we want to discard our phone and we want to get a new phone. That's kind of a individual's choice. Other things can be social norms or social status. Say for example, we go on a travel or we go to a party. We need to drink water. It's not at all fashionable to carry your water when you are going to say a party or going to a marriage celebration. Or say we are traveling, we need to drink safe water. We do not have the option at this moment in the current settings that we can carry a bottle and keep on filling it up. So most likely the only available solution which is available at every nook and corner is buy a plastic water bottle. So the consumption perspective, it might be individual choices that I want to do it in a particular manner, and which is influenced by social norms as well as institutional settings. So, because say all railway stations might not have a water purifier and clean drinking water facility. They might have a drinking water facility from where you can collect water bottle, but that facility is not connected to a water purifier, so you might not want to drink water from there. Or say for example, I am going on a road trip. There are not enough institutional facilities available where I can take my bottle of water and fill up my bottle of water. So, the only institutional setting which is available to me is there are lots of shops which sell this bottled water. So, individual choice of drinking safe water, which is also required for health reasons, and institutional settings that you have to buy these bottled drinking waters. And the social norms, which might be because of the social status or because a certain behavior at a particular moment requires you to do a certain thing. Say for example, during Diwali, all of us together want to burn crackers. That's a kind of a social norm, and you would not want to digress from that social norm because you want to belong to a particular community and all your friends are doing that particular activity. So in that particular case, you are burning crackers which are environmentally not very great because of social norms. So the first problem comes because of individual choice influenced by social norms and institutional settings. So as designers, we have to try to understand how we can, in order to bring a more sustainable consumption, I have to actually influence somewhere on the individual choice by influencing the social norms or the institutional settings. Next comes the economic factors. The industrial revolution, how the industrial revolution was organized. So the industrial revolution led to increased production volumes and reduced product prices, determining the need to sell more and more new products. So how can you maintain that level of production at an economical scale? In order to be economical, you have to have large scale production. That's what the industrial revolution was all about. In order to maintain that large scale production, you want people to consume at a large scale. So the problem of this industrial revolution was that it forced people towards ownership driven consumption. It forced people towards more and more consumption, so the industrial revolution can survive. It encouraged creation of demand for more artifacts through strategic intervention, say for example advertisement, or say building in the product itself a particular lifespan. So you know that within 1 year the technology in this product will be obsolete, which is the case with most of our electronic products like mobile phones these days, and you need to buy a new one. Then economic and political institutions also persuaded people to believe that higher material prosperity is the expected behavior. Say for example, how is a country's development measured? GDP, gross domestic product, which means how much you consume, the per capita consumption. So the political institution persuaded people to consume more and more because your country's development is now measured in terms of GDP. Bhutan came up with a very interesting measure of measuring a country's success, which is the gross happiness index. So rather than measuring development in terms of product, measure it in terms of how happy your people are. Another problem in the economic factor is, say for example, consider the two options. The first option over here is electricity produced by grids. The second option is where I am, although connected to the grid, I may or may not be, but I am having some kind of solar energy generation or maybe wind energy generation. So in the first context where I am connected to the grid, me as a consumer, I do not pay for setting up the grid. I only pay on per unit basis. But currently the system of renewable energy has been designed in a particular manner that I have to pay for the solar panels, which makes it very expensive for me. There are very few PSS oriented solutions which do not ask you to pay for the solar panels. They give you those solar panels free of cost because they do not transfer the ownership to you. The ownership remains with the company. All you do is pay per unit of electricity. Then it can become equivalent to this particular system. So since the environmental and social costs connected to products are not included in their market price, so in this particular case the grid electricity, if I am producing the electricity through thermal power plant, as you had seen in the life cycle assessment lectures, they have certain kind of ecological burden, they also have certain kind of social burden. Now the cost of nullifying that or reducing that burden is not included in my product, which is electricity. Hence, the market price of it seems to be low. So, since environmental and social costs connected to products are not included in their market prices, it can become difficult for eco-efficient PSS solutions to compete with industrially produced solutions. So, even in this particular context, the solar and the other renewable energy sources, even if a company wants to provide it to you by giving a PSS offering, for the company it becomes very much expensive, because what are they not getting a benefit is of reducing the eco burden, whereas in this case they are causing the burden but they are not paying for the burden. So there is a new system which has come into place, which is about carbon trading, wherein all those people who produce excessive carbon dioxide, in order to be able to produce, they have to pay up certain price, which is the offsetting price, and this offsetting price can be actually used to sponsor activities like the renewable energy sources, which actually offset that. Another economic factor is PSS, because we are talking about product plus service. So now service requires human labor, so it is a labor intensive solution. Now there can be two kinds of contexts. So you can see in this particular picture over here, this is a kind of a context which we can see in, say, India or maybe some other developing countries where labor is relatively cheap. Here we do not bother so much about repairing our bicycle all by ourselves, because we can go to a bicycle repair shop. They are quite plentiful in number, and we can get the work done at almost hardly any money being paid. we can get a puncture repair done, say for maybe 20 rupees or 30 rupees, which is almost nothing. So this PSS, which is labor intensive solution, the cost of offering a PSS will vary. If it is in a context, say for example Indian context, it might be cheaper because labor is cheaper over here. So providing that product plus service combination in Indian context might be cheaper, whereas in developed countries where labor is more expensive, it might be a very expensive solution. So depending on the context, we have to work out the solution. Another economic factor is the consumers do not have knowledge and understanding about the entire life cycle cost. Say for example, I go to buy an air conditioner. I will compare 5 different air conditioners. I am comparing them at that point of time on the basis of my initial cost that I will be spending in terms of ownership of that particular machine. I am not thinking about the lifetime cost, because the lifetime cost is also distributed over a large period of time. So I think it's okay. So if there are two products, one of the product is say consumes 50 watts lesser than the other product, but costs at the initial time some 20,000 rupees more than the other product. And at that point of time, if I do not have that 20,000, or if I am not willing to pay that 20,000, or if I feel that it is not worth it, because the life cycle cost I am going to pay at much smaller amounts over a long period of time, I might make a wrong decision. So which is because of my problem of understanding about the life cycle. Other thing is about knowledge. Say for example, in this chart I am trying to show, okay, if it is 5-star, it means this much amount of energy. If it is 4-star, then it means this much amount of energy. So most of the times products are also not giving us that knowledge, or there is hardly any advertisement campaign which talks about such kind of a knowledge to the consumers. So that can also be because it's not very easy to think in terms of life cycle for people. So we might also make wrong decisions which are environmentally damaging. Then there are certain psychosocial factors. So consumption choices are dependent on your prior consumption patterns. Say for example, in this particular context, this is a workstation, this is an office area. It can also be a college setting where one has a cubicle. Now if I am used to open office area where every day I come and I get a new location, so I first find out which location can I sit and start my work, and I get used to that kind of a consumption pattern, then sharing is okay for me in this particular context only, in the work environment. But say I am not used to that kind of a context. I am used to having my own personal workspace, my own personal computer which I have personalized, and I start working in that particular computer. For me to shift to a open work area, it is very, very difficult, because it requires me to change my consumption pattern. Say for this particular example, this is a public transportation system running on our roads, and because it's a public transportation, we are very much open to the idea of sharing this particular vehicle with unknown people. So in this context, we have our mental model is that sharing is okay. So if you want to bring in another kind of a vehicle which is following the same particular model of sharing, then it is way much more easily acceptable. So in relation to eco-efficient PSS, the problem is that if solutions based on sharing and access contradict the dominant and well-established norm of ownership, making consumers hesitant to accept ownerless based solutions. So you have to consider whether this is a context where what is people's dominant way of behaving. In case the dominant way of behaving is a PSS solution, then you don't have to do anything to change their way of consumption. But in case it is not, then it's a long process to convince people that why should they change their way of consumption. Say for example, in Indian context, it is very normal for all of us to own a washing machine at home. For us, if somebody says, okay, why don't you have a washing machine owned by the entire building, use that washing machine, we might be concerned about issues like hygiene and whether it will be available to us at the time when we want it. But on the other hand, when we give our clothes to a washerman, so a person who is washing clothes in a washing machine might also be giving some of the clothes to the washerman. That time the same considerations of hygiene and whether it will be available to me on time or not is not a concern. Why? Because people have got used to washing machine being always available, being a personal product, and the washerman, there is a time frame in which things will happen. There might be also times when the washerman does not deliver on time. So we are mentally prepared to accept that. So in case you want to make them shift to a building based washing machine solution, you have to work out a situation, say for example a campaign or something of that sort, so that people can make that shift. And you have to be always aware that it's very difficult for people to make that shift. So another barrier to the diffusion of ownerless based solution is the fact that the quantity and quality of accumulated goods is perceived as a measure of success in life, because they represent an indicator of a certain position in society. So we do not start trying to own products just because we need that product. Vacuum cleaners are a classic example in our country. When vacuum cleaners were introduced in the market, a lot of people bought vacuum cleaners. Anybody who could afford that because of the social status factor or the norm, or because they want to say that okay, we belong to a certain position in the society, people bought a vacuum cleaner. But it's not a product which suited our kind of cleaning requirements. So most of the vacuum cleaners which were bought are hardly used, but everybody bought a vacuum cleaner. So products is not only about giving you a certain utility, but it is also about it's an indicator of a certain position in society. Now that becomes a barrier to ownerless based solutions. Another one, the current trend towards individualization is boosting consumption demand, because a person's identity is no longer defined by a community but rather by the goods she or he owns. So say for example you want to buy a custom designed laptop, or you want to buy a customized piece of garment, or you want to buy a product which you can personalize in certain manners. So the industrial revolution, because they wanted you to consume more and more, they tried to bring in this whole concept of personalization, that you personalize your product and then it becomes a part of your identity. Your products that you carry defines who you are, and you can make a statement through the products that you carry. So all these kind of campaigns led to a trend towards individualization, which again means it has to be owned. So that is another barrier towards ownerless based solutions. So we again have to design certain kind of campaigns or certain kind of products which brings people away from that personalization, that it's not personalization through which personalization by increasing consumption that you prove your identity. Let's prove our identity by being less of a consumption freak. There is also hesitation, like in the case of the washing machine that we discussed. There is hesitation towards offers based on ownerless access and sharing because of the perceptions of independence. When I want it, I want it. I should not be dependent on an app. I should not be dependent on the availability at that point of time. Hygiene and intimacy, because we always try to get connected to our product. So we also start feeling so I love my mobile phone, I love my sofa set. So that's a kind of an intimacy you build up with your products also, which you can do only with your own products. You cannot do products with those products in which case they are ownerless based solution, where you are only consuming the result which is coming out of it. So material consumption is not linked to happiness. So there has been a lot of research which has been done. So the material ownership, the material wealth of our population has drastically increased since the industrial revolution has come into picture. The material prosperity although differs between developed countries and developing countries, but overall there has been an increase in material prosperity for each and every individual. But the same study, when it tries to find out are people more happy because of this increase in material prosperity, that is not the case. So which clearly shows that material consumption is not linked to Happiness, whenever people have been asked like what makes you happy, materials are have always taken a lower priority as compared to other aspects like the relations with their loved ones and so on. So now how to bring transition to this sustainable product service system. So I will show you some examples, certain experiments, certain perspectives of different sets of people. One of the important aspects of why we would like to have something in our life is aesthetics. Aesthetics is not necessarily only visual. Visually you find something very beautiful, that is a very important part, because our eyes plays a very important part in determining whether something is beautiful or not. But aesthetics can be perceived through all our five senses, which is vision, our ears, which is hearing, our taste buds, our smell senses, and our touch senses. So say for example you find a food beautiful because maybe it also looks good and it also tastes very good and it also smells very good. So that's the aesthetics of food. You find a piece of garment very beautiful, of course, because the colors or the patterns are beautiful, or the design of the dress is very beautiful, and as well as when you touch it and it feels very soft and nice. So aesthetics is perceived by all our five senses. So when we talk about a product's aesthetics, it is only given by that particular product, given to all our five senses. Not all products will engage all our five senses, whichever senses it is engaging. Now similarly, when we are talking about product service system, we are talking about a system. So here in this case we have to consider about the system's aesthetics. How does my system look beautiful? How does my system feel beautiful? For example, so in this picture you can see it's a wash bar by LG Electronics Laundry. It was established in 2005 in Paris. Users have access to the washing machines and dryers, but also to a bar and various recreational cultural services such as Wi-Fi internet connection, short film showings, and participation in organized events. The interior spaces appear like a bar or a games room in which washing machines and dryers are integrated. So this is a PSS service. Here you can, it's a place where you can wash your clothes and dry your clothes. Now because it's a bar plus a washing area, so you come over here. So at the end of the day, when you want to relax, you also want to clean your clothes, so you come to this particular wash bar, bring your clothes, put your clothes in the washing machine, it will do its job, then you will put them into the dryer, then it will do its job, and in this whole time you can refresh yourself in the bar with the various activities and the community building that can happen. You can interact with interesting people over there who are also waiting for their clothes to get washed. Now a very boring activity like washing clothes, which is a necessity but it's boring like anything and it's a waste of time, it becomes such an interesting thing to do. It's a relaxing job. So you can see the beauty in this whole system. So this is what I mean by systems aesthetics. Let's come to an example from Indian context. So this is a dump yard, a landfill where the municipal wastes are dumped. This is how rag pickers look in our country. They will be picking up items which might have a resale value and then go and sell it to the appropriate people. They are amongst the most marginalized part of our society. You can see they have nothing to protect themselves from all the filth in that place. The risks of fatal illness is very high amongst them. Also because we find them dirty, because they work in such dirty conditions. We just do not want to have anything to do with them. We want them to be as far as away as possible from us. Their income levels are also extremely low, so they are very exploited on those levels also. So a particular organization in Gujarat called Seva, it's a self-employed women's association, decided to change the fate of this and most rag pickers are women. There are most of them, 80%, around 80% of them are women. So this organization decided that let's organize these people, give them proper training, give them proper equipment, and then employ them as a group in certain areas to do the waste picking. So rather than being rag pickers, now they were trained to become professional garbage collectors from homes. Now for them to be taken at homes, so this is how they look like right now. So they've, in place of their gunny bags, they were equipped with modern cleaning tools like road and floor cleaners, vacuum cleaners, high jet pressure cleaners, microfiber mobs, carpet shampooing machines, scrubbers and extractors. They were trained in doing these. They were also given uniform, they were given protective gear, they were trained in how to build interpersonal relationships, because they have to go to households to collect their garbage as well. Now then they are going to a household, and because garbage is value, if the garbage is mixed, then it becomes a very difficult job to segregate them. Your garbage also becomes, so the dry garbage which is not contaminated, say for example plastic bottles, if not contaminated, they can be much easily recycled. If they are contaminated, then they have to be cleaned, so which is an additional process. So they need to also go and persuade every householder that you should do segregation of garbage. Now we do not consider the garbage collectors as people to whom we will listen to. That's how our society is organized. But when these people were trained, they were also given this interpersonal training. So how are you supposed to go and approach people and convince them to do garbage segregation? It worked really great, because now the people's perspective towards looking at them changed. Now they were looked as professional garbage collectors who know what they are doing and who know what should be done properly. So this is another kind of an example of building in aesthetics in the system. Where, how did you build in aesthetics in the system? You train people in using modern equipment, you gave them protective gear, you train them in communication skills. You also brought in organizational change. You made them into a particular association, and this association goes and gets contracts for garbage collection from societies, from institutional organizations, rather than, because the power over here lies in collectiveness. Another example, designing for relative advantages and uncertainty reductions. So while an overall idea may be beneficial to a wide range of people, its final design needs to be compatible with values and habits of particular consumers. Say for example, Ola is a service using which you can book a on-demand transportation service. Now why does it have to be always cars? In cars also, at times I might need a share car which I can share with 3 or 4 people. So every day I want to commute to office, I do not want to spend a lot of money, and I can get a car which can be shared by 3 or 4 people. There might be times when I'm traveling with large number of people, so I might need a larger car. There might be other times, or maybe my budget is smaller, I want a personal cab, but I want a smaller car which costs me lesser. In Indian roads we also have auto rickshaws, which are cheaper option. Why not auto rickshaws? There are certain places, like the place where I am from, Guwahati, we have a Brahmaputra river, and we can of course cross it through the bridge, but it takes much longer time. An easier way is crossing it through the boat. So why not have a Ola boat service? There is also Ola outstation. So I want to travel from city A to city B, I take an Ola outstation. There is Ola bike share. So there is something like Ola Pedal, a dockless bicycle sharing system available at IIT Kanpur and other large university campuses across India. So what you see, the overall idea is the same, that I want to book a means of transporting myself by using an application. It's just like, depending on different situations, I am making it compatible with the values or habits of particular consumers. I am not making like one solution fits everybody. Another one, technological innovation complemented with social innovation. So technological innovations are assumed to be radical, aiming for technological paradigm shifts, target environmental problems, and are mainly pulled by governmental policies and pushed by emerging and enabling technologies. Social innovations either refer to those innovations aiming to solve social problems such as poverty and access to safe drinking water, or those targeting behavioral change and social well-being. So I will show you one example. This is not an example of a product service system design. But why I show you this example? Because it's a brilliant example how technological innovation, when combined with social innovation, brings in great results. So this example is from Amul. So Amul, all of us know that Amul is a brand which makes milk and various milk products, and it's a cooperative which does this particular activity. So when the whole milk revolution was supposed, the white revolution was supposed to start in India, in Gujarat, the source of milk was buffalo milk. Now there was no machinery available at that point of time for making skim milk powder from buffalo milk. So H.M. Dalia, he innovated a machine which for the first time could make skim milk from buffalo milk. So that was a technological innovation. They also did a large number of technological innovations in order to collect the milk, process the milk, and so on. But would that have succeeded? Would that have succeeded? No. They also brought in social innovation. They created new systems, new social systems, new social organizations, and together the social innovation and the technology will together brought in the white revolution. So I will show you this video quickly. The longer video, I have put the link on this particular slide. This video is 19 minutes long. I will show you a shorter version of that particular video.
From the milk delivered at your door to the smiling faces of the rural women is a magical journey that has taken India to the milestone of being the world's largest milk producer. Each day here is a revelation of how the Amul wheel, set in motion in a village like this, travels many terrains across the country to reach your home. Thousands of automatic milk collection systems at village societies capture member information, milk fat content, and the amount payable to each farmer. Transaction that once took almost a month is over in a matter of seconds. From dawn to dusk, this winding line steadily flows forward, and fresh milk continues to make its way on its never-ending journey of health and happiness. The unimaginable happens tirelessly every day with clockwork precision. The milk collected from more than 2.6 million farmers across 13,000 villages is tested, graded, and transported over 1,200 routes to more than 30 dairy plants. At the processing plants, the milk is once again tested for quality, processed, and packaged. The work reaches a frenzied pitch as milk pouches are sorted and loaded onto the milk delivery vans. Thus begins the exciting but tireless journey across the length and breadth of the country into the hearts and homes of India. The vans travel through the night, arriving in the wee hours of the morning, right on time, so that you can savor your morning cup of tea, blissfully unaware of the amazing drama behind this packet of milk. It is an awakening for India, and a new call of freedom for the Indian farmer from the shackles of the middlemen. While the rest of the nation was gearing up for industrialization, Dr. Varghese Kurian, the father of the White Revolution, placed all his trust in the simple farmers.
Crops, to a fellow like me, is a matter of faith. It is almost a religion. And unless you have faith, certain things cannot be done.
What started off as a humble farmers' cooperative grew to become Amul. Amul is indeed a brand with a difference. A brand whose history is synonymous with Indian independence. A brand that has transformed the lives of millions.
यहाँ यहाँ आने से पहले मैंने सोचा था कि यहाँ चारों तरफ हरियाली हरियाली होगी, यहाँ के मवेशी खुशी खुशी घास चर रहे होंगे, लेकिन यहाँ तो चारों तरफ सूखा ही सूखा है। फिर क्या वजह है कि यहाँ की डेयरी और डेयरियों के बनिस्बत ज्यादा कामयाब है? इसका राज क्या है?
सर दरअसल कोई राज नहीं है, जो बात है वो बिल्कुल साफ है। हमारे देश की कोई भी और डेयरी ऐसी नहीं है जिसके मालिक खुद किसान हो। आनंद किसानों की डेयरी है, इसके मालिक यहाँ के किसान हैं। वो तय करते हैं कि यहाँ की क्या पॉलिसीज होगी, उन्हीं के इलेक्टेड रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स इस यूनियन को चलाते हैं। मैं भी यहाँ के किसानों का एक मुलाजिम हूँ, जिन्होंने मुझे एक प्रोफेशनल मैनेजर के हैसियत से यहाँ रखा है। अगर मैं अपना काम सही तरीके से ना करूं तो आई विल बी थ्रोन आउट, आई विल बी विदाउट अ जॉब।
इसका मतलब है कि और भी आनंद बनाए जा सकते हैं?
डेफिनेटली सर, जब तक किसान अपना स्टेक समझे तो हर चीज ऐसी कामयाब होगी।
मिस्टर कुरियन, मेरा पूरा सहयोग आपके साथ है और मैं चाहता हूं कि हिंदुस्तान के कोने कोने में आंदोलन फैले।
Amul follows an innovative three-tier organization structure known as the Anand pattern that marries the productive genius of farmers with professional management and modern technology. The replication of the Anand pattern across the country led to the success of Operation Flood. This heralded what is known as the White Revolution, and India emerged as the world's largest milk-producing nation. The Gujarat Cooperative Milk Marketing Federation, or GCMMF, runs on the binding principle that it exists solely because of farmers, its future inextricably linked to their future. Here, boardroom decisions are made keeping a social mission in mind. The Amul girl, with her tongue-in-cheek observations, underlines this philosophy in a light-hearted spirit. Amul is constantly reinventing and nourishing its brand equity in a fashion that no marketing guru or book can ever teach. Millions today consume Amul. It has transcended its myriad product forms and endeared itself into the heart of India. At Amul, every single drop of milk brought in by the villagers is used to create something exceptional for the consumer. It is not just about diversifying into new products. It is more about their relevance in people's lives and on the economic independence they bring the farmers. The aim is to cater to the needs of the customer with value-added products without a fancy price tag. Here, quality is a way of life. At every level in this massive collection, processing and distribution network, the highest standards of hygiene are maintained. The million-litre per day mother dairy plant at Gandhinagar, India's most modern dairy, has set the standards of excellence in processing and packaging. The easy-to-use, convenient Tetra Pak was introduced to give the cooperative dairy a competitive edge. Amul houses Asia's biggest powder milk plant. It was at Amul that for the first time in the world, buffalo milk was processed, a memorable landmark in the Amul movement. When Amul crossed the seas, at first it was to cater to loyal customers abroad who were far away and craving for the familiar taste of their childhood. Gradually, the world started recognizing and relishing the taste of India. It is a heartwarming sight to see Amul making its presence felt in the largest malls in the world. Amul is the reason for her lingering smile, that represents the best of family life, that translates into education and emancipation for these girls, that uplifts them, giving them the power to direct their destiny.
પહેલા હું 5 લીટર નીકાળતી, અત્યારે હું 120 લીટર કરું છું. અમૂલે તો એટલું જીવતદાન આપ્યું છે કે એટલી ખુશી છું, એટલી સુખી છું કે કોઈ બીજા ધંધાથી સુખી નહીં, એટલી સુખી છું. અમૂલ બહુ વફાદાર
task. We always say, what can one man do? One man can create an army. If he had not enough knowledge or experience to create an army, then he will know what he does not know. Then what will he do next? He'll find someone who knows. And that's what I did. I found Harichandra, the lion, who studied with me in America. He came for 2 days. He stayed for 35 years. And it is he who built Amul Dairy, not me. I merely brought him here. So, what you must know is what you do not know. And when you realize you do not know, then you will find someone who knows. And then everything will happen. Thank you.
So this is an excellent example of how do you combine strategic partnerships, strategic interactions which are part of social innovation, and then you bring in technological innovation, and together they achieve the task. The next one is designing transition paths for the diffusion of sustainable system innovations. So in this particular case, because sustainability always requires, so our aim is we want to train people who can do this, who can create this, who can diffuse sustainable system innovations in the market. So in order to do that, we have to train people in certain things. So starting from an university research context and through a continuous and iterative multi-stakeholder learning process, which also involves like experimentation, niche market, niche introduction, scaling up, branching of sustainable system innovation concept, that can also be a particular possibility. In order to explore this possibility, Professor Carlo Vezzoli from Politecnico di Milano formed with some of his colleagues a network called as LENS network. So it's learning and education network in sustainability. Now the network has grown up to include more than 150 universities all across the globe. So you can see we also have a LENS India, which is partnered by a couple of universities from India. I also introduced this particular platform in our first lecture. So you can go to this particular platform. The platform link that I gave here is of LENS India, but when you go into the platform, you can go to the all the partner websites. So there are web platforms from Brazil, China, South Africa, Europe, and so on. So what we try to do is, because each of our contexts are very different from each other's. Say for example, the context in Brazil and context in India shares way much more similarities than maybe the context in Europe. So each country platform tries to do because these platforms are located in universities, so through university the professors and the students of the university together try to experiment, explore different ways and try to disseminate these knowledge. So all the knowledge that we are trying to explore is disseminated on this particular platform. It is open for everybody to use it in any particular manner that they want to use it. So you can have resources like courses, lectures, tools, different case studies and criteria that we develop, and different projects that we do. Sustainable product service system and policy approaches. This is from what the governments can do. So governments can play a crucial role in supporting the adoption and diffusion of SPSS by developing policy frameworks and stimulating proper conditions. Say for example, in Indian agriculture, because labor is very expensive, and also say if everybody wants to harvest their fields at the same time, which is the case, you will not find enough labor to do that. Now all farmers cannot afford to buy their own tractors, and it's also not advisable that you buy your own tractor, your own harvester, which are very expensive machines and which are going to be used for only couple of days in the whole year. But in a PSS model, every farmer can get even the most expensive of machines because they only have to pay per use. So in the 12th 5-year plan, there was a submission on agricultural mechanization which said the mission proposes to cater to adverse economies of scales by promoting custom hiring services through the rural entrepreneurship model. So the government through its policy wants to promote rural entrepreneurship in villages, wherein some people in the villages can own these particular machinery through support from government agencies, and then they will run these machines in a PSS model, giving services to everyone. It's beneficial for all farmers because your harvesting can be done on time at a affordable cost, as well as you can have more efficient machines, because the more efficient machines might be more expensive. So if you as an individual want to buy it, you might not be able to afford them, so you might go for less efficient machines which are more affordable. So governments can contribute by proper policy approaches. Another part is conceptualizing the finance cycle. So this is one example from this is designed by one of our professors at IIT Guwahati, Professor E.K. Das. He designed a tricycle rickshaw and it is called as the Bahan. Now the problem in this sector that he observed was people do not have the means to buy these rickshaws. So as a result, the cycle rickshaws will be bought by somebody, and the cycle rickshaw drivers, they are basically employed by these people. As a result, the major part of the earning that he does during the whole day goes to the owner of the cycle rickshaw. So the cycle rickshaw driver remains into a vicious cycle of poverty, and he is not able to come out of it. So along with this particular tricycle rickshaw design, he along with other people created this rickshaw bank project with the help of an NGO and the Center for Rural Development at IIT Guwahati. What this rickshaw bank project does, it brings in microfinance into this sector. So the rickshaw pullers, they can take a loan from these this microfinance scheme, and in this case at a very low rate of at which this person has to return back to the money. This person can become the owner of the rickshaw, and the money that he earns during the whole day remains with him. Deep Bahan entered into the Limca Book of Records for the success that it achieved by rickshaw bank concept that started with Deep Bahan. It also won many international prizes for the innovation product service idea. Currently, Deep Bahan is running successfully in more than 10 states in India, numbering more than, so within first year, 3 years of its launch, it was more than 10,000 in number. Now it has reached more than a couple of lakhs. So here you can see it's very important finance cycle. So your product, when it has to be introduced into the market, again this one is not an example of a PSS as we had defined PSS, but why I bring in this particular concept is because in order to show that okay, a great product design to succeed in the market, it might also need some financing possibilities, especially in the BOP segment. So this is also an area where the governments can contribute, that let's develop a finance cycle so that eventually the rickshaw puller becomes the owner, but it also brings him out of the vicious circle of poverty. Another aspect which as designers we can consider is SPSS promotion through a cultural perspective. Say for example, Burdua is a local tourist destination. This particular place is in the Nagaon district of Assam. This is the birthplace of Saint Shankardev, who established Vaishnavism in this particular region. So during 2 festivals in the year, lakhs of people visit this place. This is a rural area. In spite of so many people visiting this place has a huge lake. It is called Akashi Ganga Lake. The lake is considered pious. Nobody is allowed to take a bath in that lake, or to pollute that lake, or to kill the fish in that particular lake. So in spite of so many people visiting this particular place, because of this cultural perspective that this lake is very, very pious, nobody goes and damages the sanctity of that particular lake. So cultural perspective is a very important aspect. The meaning of the cultural perspective may vary from region to region. So as designers, we can also think how we can use the cultural perspective of a particular group of people to design for spaces. Say for example, culturally, so at home our parents would always say wasting food is a big crime. So culturally we see wasting food as a big crime. But now the same crime is committed in abundance by people living in hostels, or people dining in say company cafeteria. How as designers we can bring in the same cultural perspective, maybe, so that people see to it that they do not waste food even in hostel messes or company cafeterias. A big barrier for SPSS implementation to companies is, firstly, it needs to change your business model and the corporate mindset, the way you operate. So you need new skills and competences to do that. Another problem, a very big barrier, is whenever you want to do a PSS, your initial investment is very high. So you require medium and long term investments compared to short term profit generated at the point of sale, which is a big barrier, which is a big economic barrier for any company. So we have to figure out how do we resolve that particular issue as well. These SPSS are connected with uncertainties like in cash flows. So these two become the economic barriers for companies. SPSS barriers for designers. The biggest challenge for an designer here is knowledge and skill in system design. So there are 12 competencies which a designer need to develop in order to be good at SPSS related design. These competences are systems thinking, ability to do interdisciplinary work or ability to work in interdisciplinary team, critical thinking and analysis, anticipatory thinking. You need to anticipate what will happen, what will be the result of your current decisions on future. Interpersonal relations and collaborations, so how people relate to each other, how they interact with each other, how stakeholders interact with each other, because you alone cannot give it. It has to be a combination of stakeholders who gives that. Empathy and change of perspective, strategic action. There is a lot of ambiguity and uncertainty in this particular field, so tolerance for ambiguity and uncertainty. Personal involvement, the skill to do assessment and evaluation of various parameters and to see their impact on sustainability. Communication and use of media, justice, responsibility and ethics. According to United Nations Environmental Programme 2002, nevertheless, SPSS development is seen as a whole present a potential for generating win-win solution which promote profit, environmental and social benefits. They have the potential to provide the necessary, if not sufficient, conditions to enable communities to leapfrog less resource intensive system of social and economical standards of living. So the reading material remains the same for this entire SPSS lecture. In the next lecture of the week, we will get into discussing about methods and tools for design for SPSS. Thank you.